welcome to the stream. I hope you're all having a wonderful morning or whatever time of the day it is for you. I'm going to be doing some writing today. Most of the time on my Monday morning ones, I like to do some drawing or some craft or something like that. But I've wanted to have a go at doing some writing instead, just to see how it goes. And I have a little short story that I started writing years ago that I never ended up finishing, that I'd like to try revisiting. I've written like the first half of it, and then I never got around to finishing it. So I'd like to have another look at that today. Maybe edit what we've already got there, and have a go at finishing it off. I'm not sure how this is going to go down in a stream format, but I think it should be interesting. But I'll show you what I've got so far. It's only going to be a short one, like story-wise. I like writing short stories, but this one is called Milo and the Mushrooms. I'll probably rename that. That's a stupid name, but it's set in a world of mine called Poppii that I've designed, and essentially started off as kind of a thought experiment of me to try and make the most like pleasant and peaceful designed world as I could, and now it's just kind of become just the space that I write in the most whenever I just feel like I need to write something, just because it's got such a distinct aesthetic and vibe to it. So it's really easy for me to settle into writing about it, and there are lots of different interesting little things going on. But I'll give you a bit of backstory about the world, because some of it will be important to the story. The main thing you need to know, it's quite low fantasy. So in the distant past, the world of Poppii was reasonably technologically advanced, probably just a bit beyond ours, but it kind of drove them into disaster, as basically the world was ravaged by war and it was absolutely decimated, and it sucked really bad and everyone had a terrible time. Yes. So no one was particularly enjoying themselves, but the few survivors essentially banded together and agreed to try to remake the world based on essentially the inverse of the tenets of the previous world. So basically being very aware of where they went wrong in the past and trying to steer themselves away from that. So while they technically have the knowledge to have the knowledge of and the skills to create higher technologies, they actively don't, because they know that the greed and what are my words? The greed and the basically the chaos that inevitably comes out of that will lead to their own destruction. So they're trying to they're purposefully keeping themselves low tech. So there isn't any electricity or anything like that, though there are like archives documenting how to do that stuff. They keep the knowledge, but they don't use it. So it's very I think there are elements of magic, but it's reasonably low magic. It's just a very kind of cute, pastel-y fantasy world. So let me think. So this particular story, one other thing to note is that time doesn't exactly work in the same way. While they still have months and everything like that, over the course of a day will last for months and months at a time. So it is there are long stretches of daylight and then long stretches of darkness, each of which that span months. There is a reason for that, but that is too complicated for me to get into right now. But it means there are long periods of time when people are in the dark and they still need to find ways to continue working and creating food and stuff like that, and that heavily ties into what this story is about. This story is about a young man named Milo, who specifically works with growing mushrooms. And this story is about him developing. It's kind of like a potion of sorts that will allow the mushrooms to glow different colors, depending on how clustered they are and stuff like that. So essentially what he's wanting to do is plant all these mushrooms along the roads so people can more easily navigate their way around the world when it's dark. But what I want to do is start off by reading through this story, maybe editing it a touch, and then I've got to figure out how it ends. I have an idea, but I'm not sure. Some thoughts and input would be nice. But generally, these stories are very slice of life. They're just very cozy, and just examining how people live their lives in this world. Just sometimes hinting at what's going on in the wider world, but generally just cute and quiet and pleasant. So I haven't actually read this one for ages, because I started writing this a few years ago. So hopefully it doesn't suck too bad, but it'll probably suck a bit because I barely edited it. So anyway, time for story. Okay. It was Milo's job to plant new mushrooms. It was a rare job. In fact, he'd never run into another person of the profession. It was one of those jobs people steered away from, not because it was particularly heinous or difficult. There were plenty of farmers and gardeners across Poppii, many tending to much harsher crops than him, but it was polar work, as people said. They could work for months and then the sun would set and you'd be out of a job till next season, and people like consistency. Milo didn't mind it much. He earned enough through the day months to keep him going through the night, and when times got tough, people were usually grateful enough for his work to pad him out till dawn. Every cog is important in a well-oiled machine, he was told. Not that anyone would waste oil on a machine, or would have any type of machine to begin with. But his job was important. That was enough. Water settled happily into the dirt as Milo fed the plants on his windowsill. He noted the Maya trill's leaves had darkened slightly, a precursor to them turning purple. A seasonal change. Nothing to mind. But not, God, my reading comprehension is not good today. That's a great sign. But not one the sky hadn't already told him. Okay. He looked up and out the window at the grey sky, a corner of darkness somewhere to the east behind his house, meandering its way over the white. He sighed. There we go. Okay. Outside, a cart trundled past, and he knew it was time to set out. Rolling hand spades and trowels in his roll-up canvas. Oh, hang on. That sucks. Let me highlight that. Okay, I'll remember that later. Pulling a hat over his head and carefully raising the trays of bottles and flasks in his arms, he made his way out the door. Milo was glad to be living on the outskirts of town. He was closer to the mushrooms that way and saved from the bustle of the square. He could walk to the shops if he needed, but the calls and the cackles of the markets were a siege which he battled. Out here he could think, God, I need to rewrite some of this shit. The mushrooms started well into town, but the thickest clusters began with a 15-minute walk. He studied the bunches as he walked. Shit, come on, dude. This is terrible. I should just... Can I... Just highlight. Thank you, there we go. No, that's not what I want. There. Well-spaced, complementary growth rates, healthy number of spore pads. He'd done a good job this year. And he was glad to see people were careful with his mushrooms. One year he'd found a group of young boys stomping on one of the denser patches, kicking off their caps and throwing them at each other. Milo was furious. He dropped his case and started shaking. Lucky for the boys, a guard came by and pulled them back off to town before Milo could get his hands on them. And luckily for Milo, they were all gone by the time he started crying. It's not like the mushrooms were pets or anything. They couldn't feel pain, and he knew that. But sentient or not, Milo poured his heart into caring for the things, and seeing them destroyed was painful. But the aggressors were young. Most people of Poppii knew the importance of the mushrooms and took care with their carts and on their walks to give them room and let them grow. The mushrooms started here, at the edge of town, and stretched along the road till it reached the next, a spongy hedgerow not 2 feet tall, and Milo was proud to believe that Poppii wouldn't manage the nighttime without them. Eventually, he arrived at the patch he was looking for. Rather than being 1 or 2 mushrooms deep, forming a little low fence along the road, here the patch spread wider, a sign marking the split in the road where the path from town forked in 2 directions. The mushrooms were slightly bigger here, wider caps and thicker stalks, taller to warn upcoming travellers of the divergence. Milo knelt down beside one of the outer ones, careful not to disturb those around it. It was a light parchment brown, like the others, and its cap was spongy and sturdy, giving a satisfying plunk as he tapped on it. This one would do nicely. Milo unfurled his rolled-up satchel and pulled out the curved metal rod. He'd liken it to a blade, but it wasn't nearly sharp enough to cut anything. It was closer to a shoehorn or a letter opener. He'd fashioned it himself, after enough badgering of the blacksmith to use her forge. The thing wasn't designed to cut off pieces of the mushroom, but to encourage them to drop of their own volition. They weren't sentient, of course, but Milo felt better to ask than to take. He squashed himself down low, his ear practically to the ground, and craned his head around to see the gills. Today was not a normal day at work. If Milo were honest, he would admit he finished planting the mushrooms weeks ago. He was, in this case, dishonest, however, and insisted he would be working right up till dusk. But today, he was testing something exciting. He raised the letter horn carefully, pulling it across the surface of the gills, releasing a thin strand of tissue, which he caught carefully in his hand. And then he pulled forward the tray, a collection of mismatched glass cups and bottles, each with one of the 3 liquids inside, yellow, red, and purple. He had tried the 3 individually before, but if he were to make any of a case, they'd have to work together. Milo got to work, cutting up the small piece of mushroom, mixing liquids, injecting myelin, and testing his samples. At the culmination of his work, he pulled his cloak up over his head, over his experiment, and watched them in the darkness. Okay, some of that needs a little bit of work, over his experiment. There's some grammar issues in there, and also just some sentences that need some reworking, just because, I don't know, sometimes they're a bit long in places. When I struggle to read them, it means there's something wrong with the sentence. It's not flowing well enough. That's always my tip if you're doing some writing, is to read through it, and if you stumble, you probably need to rewrite it. Oh, not the whole thing, but just that section. Okay. I might actually switch up the music. I want something a little bit more chill. Let's see, what have we got here? I was using a nice one the other day, and I don't think I saved it. Give me something, just something relaxing. Yeah. No, I need playlists. Sorry, brief intermission. Let's see. I want something nice and chill. Yeah, what is some... Here we go. This sounds good. Yeah, that's the one. Some feel-good classical. Thank you. Okay. Now, let's see. There are a few bits that I wouldn't mind expanding on. So essentially, I need to remember what my plan was initially for it. I think the mushrooms already glow. Do they? They're currently being used. Like they're growing like hedges along the roads in places. I think my idea was that adding this kind of serum thing to them would mean that they would glow different. They would glow a certain color when something came close to them, which essentially means that if someone was walking along the path in the distance, you would see the mushrooms change color around them, which is basically giving people a heads up. Oh, hey, there is some people coming down the road and they're about this big, so they could easily navigate around each other. And I think there was another one. So I think it was that. So what were the colors? Because that'll probably actually give me a clue. There was yellow, red, and purple. I think they must already glow. I think I was pictured that they glow blue. Let's make some dark noise. So the mushrooms, they glow blue. I think they turn yellow when something... so if someone is close to them, they'll start to glow like yellow. Red... I think I also wanted one where if one was damaged, it would glow a different color. So it essentially means if there's something dangerous coming up the road, you'll probably also see some red ones, because it means they're like actively destroying some of the mushrooms they're coming into. So it's a bit of a warning signal. I guess that might be what the red is doing. Then what would purple do? This isn't as much as me trying to remember what I thought of previously, but what would be helpful? That's how you spell damage, isn't it? Did I spell it wrong? Oh, it's punctuation. It's a dot point, it doesn't matter. Okay. If they... Or maybe it's just that they naturally glow yellow. No, because if his work is considered important already as it is, like people highly value the work he's doing, he's clearly providing a good service then that people need. So I imagine they already glow, because otherwise they're just mushrooms on the side of the path. So what does the purple one do? Okay. Could be something like the presence of magic, but that wouldn't necessarily be helpful, because some people who are traveling are just going to have magic on them, and other people who are traveling don't necessarily need to know that. I could change color depending on how close dawn is. But I think the people of this world are so in tune with that that's not necessarily something they need an indicator of. Maybe that's just something to sit on. It doesn't necessarily need to be covered in this story what each of them do, but it'd be cool to extrapolate on that. But I need to figure out what's going to happen next as well. I think, because we're kind of stopping there, I think it might be even nice to do a bit of a time jump. So so I imagine, even if this works, they wouldn't be like, cool, deploy to all the mushrooms immediately, because if for some reason it went wrong, then you've wiped out all of them. I think what would happen is the town that he's in would probably say, cool, we'll do a test patch like between these two towns. You set it up so we can get a good demonstration of how it works. And then we'll have representatives come from the council, like from all the different towns, to view it, to see how it works. And then agree... what am I thinking? Then come to an agreement that we should distribute it wider, like across all the different towns and stuff like that. This is a reasonably small world as well. Actually, if you saw my last Monday stream where I was working on a map, it was a map of this world. I could probably even bring it up. I might. I don't know if I haven't actually. I don't think I've actually exported that map. Let me have a look. It would be in Oh god, where would it be? I have so many different folders and documents. It's a nightmare. I have so many different things I work on. It's a little bit ridiculous. Okay, maybe in here? Nope, that's not it. I will not be able to find it now. Anyway, but it's a reasonably small world, so distributing it to other places would be fine. So I can imagine the next half of this story being Milo, because I like the idea of it being like a reveal, but that wouldn't work with how the how darkness sets in. It's a gradual thing, so you would just slowly see them start glowing as it got darker. You wouldn't have a big reveal moment for Milo. And as much as I'd like to see his reaction to that, I don't think that's what would happen. But you can have that same effect done through someone else being introduced to it. So if someone has traveled from somewhere else to view how the mushrooms are working, that might do the job. Actually, no, I do want to find a copy of this map. At least a copy of it, so I can look at the different towns. Because I imagine this is happening. Actually, did I mention what town this is happening in? My treasures, new mushrooms. It would be capitalized Poppii. No, I think I just say town. I don't think I actually mentioned which one he lives in. Yeah, started well into town. Okay, it'd probably be search, find the thing. Sorry. I don't know what it looks like. I'm just asking my computer to find it for me. The thing is as well is then we're introducing a new character, and I kind of want to keep this dialogue free. I often like the stories in Poppii to be without dialogue because they're more an exploration of the environment. They're very nature heavy stories a lot of the time, and I like to keep it grounded in the location, and sometimes talk can remove it a bit from that unless the conversation is the purpose of the story. But I'd like to keep it dialogue free. But maybe the person the representative just doesn't talk. It's interesting reading back over this, because I'm currently in the process of potentially getting an ASD diagnosis, which is very exciting. Well, it'll potentially be happening in the next few months or something, which would be nice. But it's very interesting because I wrote this years and years ago before that was even a thought to me, and a lot of Milo very much reads as being on the spectrum for me now. So, and I was very much channeling those aspects of myself into this without really realizing that's what it was. So it's very fun. But having them just communicate non-verbally would be I think still makes sense within the realm of the story. I can't find this map. I have a drawn one, like a piece of paper one here with me, but that's not very helpful for you. I'm sure I must have put it somewhere. Anyway, I can decide. So I would say maybe he lives. Maybe in Pansy or Comet. All the place names in this are like overly cutesy and stuff. just for fun. Where is this picture? Because I actually when I made this map, I didn't just like randomly draw shapes. What actually happened is that I found a little old table by the side of the road. And I thought it was cute. And so I picked it up and took it home. But it had a lot of water damage on the top of it. And I tried to sand out some of it, which I wasn't perfect at, but I had all of these different weird ridges on it and stuff, and so I ended up tracing them and using that as a map, and I ended up painting the top of the table to look like a map. I thought, wow, this is really cute. I'm going to turn this into a fantasy world, and that is what I did. An interesting way to map generate, but but it worked. And it's cool. So now I have that little table. Okay. Let me see. I hadn't yet exported the map that I had drawn, but I'll do that quickly, and then I pop it into this document so you can see it. I don't know if this map is quite done yet, like the coloring of it. I think it could use some more detail, but it's getting there. Okay. Let's see. Actually, I might just be able to go. Oh yeah, let's make this a little bit bigger. I don't want to just open it in a new tab or anything, because then I'd have to mess with OBS stuff, and I just don't want to right now. Show me the thing. Okay, beautiful. Woo, too much. So this is Poppii. Yeah, so it's kind of like in a bit of a bowl valley. With all these lakes and stuff in the center. See my cursor hanging out over the top there. Cute. Yeah, but they're all named things like hither and spruce, and all of the lakes are named after type of like sweeteners. So there's like honey and maple and agave, or agave and molasses and golden. Golden being like golden syrup, and then I named this pond silver just as a derivative of that. You got the Amethyst Sea and the Emerald Sea. That's not technically a sea, but whatever. Chamomile Mountains, Chai Mountains, Starlight Mountain. The Tea Tree Hills is where the main story I've written takes place. I wrote another short story, which is actually I've recorded into an episode of a podcast, so you can listen to it if you want to. It's where that one is set, about a little family who grows tea up in the Tea Tree Hills. Yes, that's I have a vague assembly of a podcast called Ode of the Night Bard, which I've only put one episode out of just because editing them takes time and I often don't have it. But there's the first episode is set in Poppii. But I think towns like Spruce and Hither are a bit on the larger side because they're more central, and so they're often used as trade places. Places like Mistletoe and Cedar are a bit further out. It's starting to get a bit more deserty, well-ish. But we'd want somewhere that you could easily, like, something small. So I think maybe he lives in Comet and is planting mushrooms between Pansy and Comet. I think that makes sense, because then you'd need someone to come from a journey, on a journey to come and visit, to see if it's working and stuff. So I'm gonna, no, that's terrible. Actually, I can just, yeah, I'll just get rid of it. We don't need it in there. Yes, I think he lives in Comet. Okay, so I did develop a full governmental system for how this all works, and I didn't write down a lot of it, or if I did, I can't find it, which is very frustrating. But the idea of it was essentially like there's kind of a council of representatives of all of the towns that gather to make wider decisions, but also within that, like the like burgomaster or the mayor of the town, you can't be the mayor or burgomaster of your own town, like the town that you grew up in. The idea is that when you want to be one, you have to essentially move you before you can even like get into politics, you need to stay in another town and travel around towns for a certain amount of time as a requisite, so you get a sense for how all the other towns work, what their needs are, and that kind of thing. And then when you're a leader of the town, I think you can be a leader for like 3 years or something like that before you essentially everyone like you have to move. So there are dedicated like mayor houses that people just the different ones like swap through. Essentially the idea is you gotta really want the position because it is a very dedicated life, but I mean they all are in a low fantasy, low tech place like this. But the idea is that if you pumping heaps of money into one place is only going to benefit you for so long, because you're going to have to move. So the idea is that you are genuinely invested in bettering the community that's there and the wider like world. That certainly wouldn't. Well, I don't know if that would work in real life, but on such a small scale world as this, I think it does the job, and it's cute or whatever. So I think. I'm trying to think how this meeting would go about people coming to view the mushrooms. So it's likely the people of like Pansy and Comet and probably Hither and even Spruce have probably seen it before. The capital city is oh gosh, I shouldn't have deleted that picture, should I? The capital city is at the like built into Starlight Mountain, like the big one. God, what a cheesy name. That's kind of what I was going for. I like it. So this just there's a little citadel kind of one called Light built into that mountain there. So that's kind of the capital city of sorts. So perhaps it's how would it work? Because I think the council, all these different people are going to need to discuss whether to implement it between the different towns, whether they would all come and visit it at once, or I think more likely what they would do is that each of them would have their turn to meet Milo, to see the mushrooms, form their own opinion without being swayed by the others, and then they'd have a meeting. Because like if they all rocked up and one of them was loudly like, wow, this sucks, that's going to instantly sway the opinion of all the others. But if they each get the time to meet Milo, hear about it, hear the intentions of it. So maybe that's what's happening. So maybe the ones from Pansy and Comet and Hither have probably looked around before, but maybe this is the first person who's decided to come and pay a visit is the person from Light. Which why don't I argue then that they're the first person to come and visit it, because I mean they live in this citadel which is inside a mountain. The possibility of this new mushroom-based light system, almost as like a form of like a communication thing, would potentially be helpful to them as well. So I'd say potentially they're very interested in this idea. Move over there. Get out of here. Okay. So we've got the, what did I call them? Mayor, maybe? I like the term Burgomaster, but that's just because it is funny. And also because I heard it from Curse of Strahd and I love Curse of Strahd. Maybe... just maybe the ambassador. So the ambassador... Oh no, but now I need to spell ambassador. Ambassador? Oh, hell yeah. Ambassador from... Light. Ambassador is... Okay. So I might start it off simple of them say, maybe they're just meeting at like a local tavern, because this is just a small town, and Milo leading them over to the mushrooms. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think it can be nice and simple. I just like that, and because it's mostly an exploration of how Milo feels about it all. But before I do that, do we want to go back and edit previously a little bit? I'll go one more time over it. Okay. It was Milo's job to plant new mushrooms. It was a rare job. In fact, he'd never run into another person of this. Never run into. In fact, he'd never. There you go. A bit more concise. It was one of those jobs people steered away from, not because it was particularly heinous or difficult. There were plenty of farmers and gardeners across Poppii. This is a very long sentence, but I guess it kind of works. It was one of those jobs people steered away from, not because it was particularly heinous or difficult. There were plenty of farmers and gardeners across Poppii, many tending to much harsher crops than his. But it was polar work, as people said. I guess that works. Whatever. This isn't a final edit. They could work for months, and then it was polar work, as people said. You could work for months. There should be a U. Maybe capitals. You could work for months, and then the sun would set, and you'd be out of a job till next season. People like consistency. Sure. Milo didn't mind it much. He earned enough through the day months to keep him going through the night, and when times got tough, people were usually grateful enough for his work to pad him out till dawn. Yeah, I like the idea in this world that there's a lot of people very much carry an open door policy. It's like I think it's mostly, I don't think there's a monetary system. I think it's all done through trade and bartering. Except for jobs like this, when you're not actively harvesting something, I think there is almost like a tax system, or that people often like donate stuff that is then distributed to the people of these jobs. I can't entirely remember what the system I came up with, but it was something like that. But then also people are like, you do this job, I'm very grateful for that, here, I will give you some of this. So like people are generally like understanding that it's through generosity that the world like keeps turning. I think education is probably one of the huge pillars of this world, that from a young age children are taught like this, like our world was decimated before, we were at war and it was horrible, and it's only through luck that this small amount of people were able to survive, to rebuild the society we have now. This is where we went wrong previously, and so these are the reasons that the world is run in this way now. So people know why the different systems are in place and know why they're important. So generally people know that supporting each other is the way that they survive. And when times got tough, people were usually grateful enough for his work to pat him out. No, that sentence is a bit rough. He earned enough through the day months to keep him going through the night. And when times got tough, people were usually grateful. Oh, no, that's gross. There's got to be a better way to write that. When times got tough. Um... Yeah, nobody's going to that. He earned enough through the day months to keep him going through the night, and when times got tough he could rely on the town. They were grateful for his work, and most were happy to pad him out till dawn. There we go, that's a bit more coherent. This makes sense, doesn't it? And when times got tough. That's fine. Shut up, word. I don't care. Every cog is important in a well-oiled machine. He was told not that anyone will waste oil on a machine, being like oil is used for cooking and starting fires and stuff now, or would have any type of machine to begin with. This is true, and is kind of an indicator to what has happened in the past, but it also just doesn't. It feels weird. How does that feel? It's like saying something and then immediately taking it back. So it's like, why put it there in the first place? I could just come up with a better metaphor rather than backtracking. It's like I couldn't come up with a good enough metaphor that actually suits the world, that I need to backtrack and explain it here. It's weak sauce. I have a cup of tea, just a second. Yeah. I'm having a lychee black tea. It's quite nice, actually. Okay, what's a better metaphor? Every cog is important in a well-oiled machine. So I need something that's fantasy appropriate. Tech level appropriate, just so I don't need to backtrack. Because they do know what, like, machines are, because they've been educated about it. They just don't use it. So I guess it makes sense. It just doesn't feel right. I think the mentioning of machines and backtracking stuff takes you out of the moment a bit, even if it is true. Okay, what's something? This is a very dramatic song. Alright. That's almost over. Okay. Every brick is important in a house. That's not necessarily true. You can take a brick out and it'll probably be fine. The thing is, the cog in a machine is just... It's a good metaphor. But then also, like, cog in the machine is also kind of used as, like, a big, like, I don't know, reflecting of, like, bigger corporations and stuff. It's like, oh, I'm just a cog in the machine. Yeah, but... maybe I'll just highlight it and come back to it. His job was important, and that was enough. There we go. Well, I'll think about that later. Water settled happily. What the fuck does that mean? No, we need to create an image. Water settled into the dirt as my... Okay. It settles... What does it settle like? It settles like water into dirt. I... is happily. No, it's not. It's not happy. It's water. Oh, water could be happy, I guess. It's settled. It's settled. Something more like gently. That's actually like describing the movement. It's settled. Like 60% of my writing is me just trying to find a single word. Water settled. It's settled like. What did it settle like? Comfortably. It's comfortable. Okay, it's time for a thesaurus. Okay, thank you. Thesaurus.com. Let's see. Comfortably, contentedly is kind of content. But contentedly is such a long word. Is it even a word, contentedly? Yeah, it is. There we go. Cheerfully, gladly, cheerily, cordially, enthusiastically, freely, gleefully, gratefully. Gratefully? But the water isn't grateful, is it? It's the plant that's grateful. Heartily, readily, warmly, willingly, no. Acquiescently, whoa. Ardently, beautifically? Why is there a C in there? Blissfully? Blissfully's cute. But contentedly is kind of the... But it's just too long a word. Blithely, delightedly, delightfully, ecstatically. Ecstatically, all the ones like ecstatically, cheerfully, cheerily are cute, but the water's not settling into the dirt with a little grin on its face thanking me. It's just like, cool, I'm happy to be here. Gaily, genially. Genially? Define genially for me. Also, the other 40% is me Googling the definition of words. Even if, like, I know what genially means, but sometimes there are elements of nuance to words that I'd like need to pinpoint, because generally when you know what a word means, you just heard it in conversation and don't always in a friendly and pleasant way. Okay, water settled genially? No, that sounds terrible. Jovially, joyfully, joyously, lovingly, merrily, paradisically, passionately, pleasantly, pleasingly, pleasurably, rapturously, sweetly, with good grace. Freely, gladly, gleefully, graciously, heartily, joyfully, joyously, lovingly, merrily, peacefully, playfully, willingly, agreeably, brightly, buoyantly, delightedly, delightfully, devotedly, elatedly. I can't, these words aren't making any sense to me anymore. I'm not taking them in. Oh god. I like happily, TBH. It captures the moment really well, I think. Oh, thank you. Also, hi, Banana Split. Welcome to the chat. Any of the happy aligned adjectives make me think of a Ghibli movie? Oh, that's 100% the aesthetic I'm going for, so thank you. Okay, you know what? We'll leave it as happily at the moment. Thank you for your input. I appreciate it. I would have been stuck on that for 15 minutes. Okay, water settled happily into the dirt as Milo fed the plants in his windowsill. He noted the is Myotrill a plant, or did I make that up? Hang on, let me Google. Myotrill. Is that a word? Nope, I made that up. Okay. Cool. The Myotrill's leaves had darkened slightly. I guess that makes sense if I'm if I'm specifically like making it related to the seasonal changes of the world. I guess it would make sense to me to Myotrill. I might change that name. I'll highlight it at least, because I mean it works, but I don't know, the configuration of like syllables there or something feels like a stumbling point. He noted the Myotrill. Yeah, noted the I'm reading this like I have a real poetry brain for writing, so I really look at just in terms of sentences, how words flow together. He noted the Maya. It needs to. I think it needs to start with a vowel. Noted the. I'll just highlight that and think of another name later, but I don't think that name works. He noted that the plant's leaves had darkened slightly, a precursor to them turning purple, a seasonal change, nothing to mind. But not one. A seasonal change, nothing to mind. And I don't think it should be a but, it should be an and, nothing to mind. Because the but made me feel like it was changing subject matter, and that was throwing the sentence off a bit. A seasonal change, nothing to mind, and not one the sky hadn't told him already. That makes no sense, and that is... Whoa, goodbye, okay. He looked up and out the window. I don't think... I think he looked out the window. He looked out the window, up at the grey sky, a corner of darkness somewhere to the east behind his house. This is barely a sentence. This is a string of thoughts. He looked out the window, up at the grey sky. He looked out the window and up at the grey sky. He looked out the window, up at the grey sky. And maybe and up at the grey sky. It's good to have short sentences sometimes. A corner of darkness. A corner of darkness. Said someone should. There we go. That's better. He looked out the window and up at the grey sky. A corner of darkness set somewhere to the east behind his house, meandering its way over the white. Ooh, I don't know if this works. The sky is white in this world. It's white, and then at night it's just like pure black. There are also no stars in this world. There's a reason for that, but I can't explain. I could explain, but I have... All of my stories are written like in the same multiverse. And so I'm like, hey, the reason why could be a story one day. And if I say it anywhere before I write that story, I'm spoiling it. For a story I may potentially never write. But I'm still like, no, it's a secret. But there are no stars. And so the sky like slowly turns grey as it moves into night. A corner of darkness set somewhere to the east behind his house, meandering its way over... So I've already said sky up here, so I don't necessarily want to say sky again. Over... It says a corner of darkness set somewhere to the east behind his house. What if we use a simile? Wow. That feels corny. A corner of darkness sat somewhere to the east behind his house, black ink crawling across a white canvas. It's a cool image, but I also don't think it necessarily accurately... I don't think it necessarily accurately describes the picture, because it's not... Because ink gives the picture of more like tendrils kind of creeping across the sky. And it's more like watercolor, like a slow gradient. Corner of darkness set someone... Maybe just that. A corner of darkness set somewhere to the east behind his house. Watercolor crawling across a white canvas. No, I like the U. Add it to the dictionary. There we go. He sighed. Okay, I think that'll do for the moment. Outside. Oh, here we go. I do this all the time. I don't know if a writing tip, having the same word in like close proximity to each other tends to throw off a sentence a bit, because your mind automatically like links them together, and it kind of it's like tripping over something, but for your brain. It's a stumbling block when you're reading. Okay, outside a cart trundled past, and he knew it was time to set out. I know that's simple, but I really like that image. That I'm trying to get through the idea that that he's like telling the time by the goings on in the world around him. Like, the idea here is he knows that cart trundles, that specific one he's paid attention to, trundles past at this time in the day, and so that's when he knows when to set out. When I catch a bus for the first time, I follow it on Google Maps so I know when to get off, but it's just like going, okay, that's that landmark. I've passed that, so now I know to press the button and get off. That kind of thing. Anyway, I don't know why, but I just really, I like this bit. Just this one little shitty sentence about a cart. Anyway, rolling hand spades and trowels into his... we don't need to say roll up. It's just a canvas case. Oh, rolling... But I'm specifically picturing one of those ones, like, you know those little... A roll-up canvas case that either has painting brushes or, like, lock-picking tools in them. I'm picturing one of those. Maybe if I do placing, tucking, maybe tucking. He's tucking them into it. And tucking is a cute little, like, oop, I'm tucking it away. Tucking hand spades and trowels into his roll-up canvas case, pulling a hat over his head, and... Also, this sentence sucks. Sorry. It's too long. Especially, this is... Because I'm doing a list. But this bit is too long that you don't recognize it as an element of a list. You just think it's a full sentence, so then when the list continues, you're like, whoa, wait, what? We're listing things now? Tucking... We don't need canvas. Let's just make this one. Also, hand spades and trowels are the same thing. Does anyone even call them hand spades? Tuck it. Also, no, I do like the image of the roll-up case. But is roll-up case what you'd even call it? Let me Google it. Roll-up case. What would you call that? A pencil roll? Pencil case. A roll-up pencil case. A roll-up, yep. Well, I mean, just a roll-up case, I guess. I don't know, I've said case so many times now, it doesn't feel like the right word. I think of case and I think of something tougher, like the kind of case you put a switch in. Like, you know, the kind of hard plastic ones? And also tucking trowels in his roll-up case. Does that work? Maybe. Tucking trowels into his... No, I don't like that. Tucking trowels into his roll-up case. I've been working on a poem recently. It's a very, very structured one. It's like I've come up with the most it's a 4-part poem. Each of the parts use a different structure. Like a different structural system. So I don't know if you might know poetry stuff, but God, essentially it's like It's designed to be really structured and sound like a classic rhyming poem at the beginning, to flow really nice, and then slowly over the 4 ones break down and become more chaotic and sporadic. And the structure of it is supposed to reflect what the things coming undone within the story of it. But I've just got my head so into using like iams and trochees of like balancing stressed and unstressed words and making things rhyme and using the correct amount of I've been using septimeter, so I'm using 14 syllables in a sentence or in a line, and my head is so in that space that I'm like just writing a sentence however I want. It feels weird. So I can't look at this sentence. Tucking trowels into his roll-up case. I guess that's fine. Is that fine? I'm gonna leave it and look back at it later because I can't tell. Pulling a hat over his head. Onto his head? You wouldn't... Yeah, onto. You're putting it on his head. You're not just... You're not just moving it over the top of your head and dropping it behind you. Tucking trowels into his roll-up case. Because it's too many syllables. It's too many syllables. Pulling a hat onto his head and carefully raising the tray of bottles and flasks in his arms, he made his way out the door. No, see, I just think that sentence structure doesn't work. I don't like it. It's just too long for a list sentence. I'm fully getting a headache. You know what? I should take a hot second from this and then continue on the story. Actually, what I'll do is I'll finish, for anyone who's only just joined, I'll reread through all of it, let you know where we're going, and then continue writing the story. We'll do that. So some of this is going to be a little bit rough because I wrote it down years ago and then haven't touched it since. So hopefully I've not only improved my writing, but anyway, hopefully my writing is better now. But it's a bit rough. Anyway. Okay. It was Milo's job to plant new mushrooms. It was a rare job. In fact, he'd never... Fuck, shit. Damn it. He'd never met someone. God damn it. Anyway, nope, back in the zone. Here we go. This is supposed to be chill. Whew. It was Milo's job to plant new mushrooms. It was a rare job. In fact, he'd never met someone who shared the profession. It was one of those jobs people steered away from. Not because it was particularly heinous or difficult. There were plenty of farmers and gardeners across Poppii, many tending to much harsher crops than his. But it was polar work, as people said. You could work for months and then the sun would set and you'd be out of a job till next season. And people like consistency. Milo didn't mind it much. He earned enough through the day months to keep him going through the night, and when times got tough, he could rely on the town. They were grateful for his work, and most were happy to pad him out till dawn. Every cog is important in a well-oiled machine, he was told. Not that anyone would waste oil on a machine, or would have any type of machine to begin with, but his job was important. That was enough. Water settled happily into the dirt as Milo fed the plants on his windowsill. He noted the Maya's trill's leaves had darkened slightly, a precursor to them turning purple. See, I stumbled over that when I tried to say it. A seasonal change, nothing to mind, and not one the sky hadn't already told him. He looked out the window and up at the grey sky. A corner of darkness sat somewhere to the east behind his house, watercolour crawling across a white canvas. He sighed. Outside, a cart trundled past, and he knew it was time to set out. Tucking trowels into his roll-up case, pulling a hat onto his head, and carefully raising the tray of bottles and flasks in his arms, he made his way out the door. Too many actions in one space. It blurs the image. Anyway. Milo was glad to be living on the outskirts of town. He was closer to the mushrooms that way and saved from the bustle of the square. He could walk to the shops if he needed, but the calls and cackles of the markets were a siege against which he battled. Ugh, God, that sentence sucks. Out here, he could think. The mushrooms started well into town, but the thickest clusters began with a 15-minute walk. He studied the bunches as he walked. Ugh, two walks, so close together, gross. He studied the bunches as he walked. Well-spaced, complementary growth rates, healthy number of spore pads. He'd done a good job this year. And he was glad to see people were careful with his mushrooms. One year he'd found a group of young boys stomping on one of the denser patches, kicking off their caps and throwing them at each other. Milo was furious. He dropped his case and started shaking. Lucky for the boys, a guard came by and pulled them back off to town before Milo could get his hands on them. And luckily for Milo, they were all gone by the time he started crying. It's not like the mushrooms were pets or anything, but they couldn't feel pain, and he knew that. But sentient or not, Milo poured his heart into caring for the things, and seeing them destroyed was painful. But the aggressors were young. Most people of Poppii knew the importance of the mushrooms and took care with their carts and on their walks to give them room and let them grow. The mushrooms started here at the edge of town and stretched along the road till it reached the next, a spongy hedgerow not 2 feet tall. And Milo was proud to believe that Poppii wouldn't manage the nighttime without them. Eventually, he arrived at the patch he was looking for. Rather than being 1 or 2 mushrooms deep, forming a little low fence along the road, here the patch spread wider, a sign marking the split in the road where the path from town to town forked in 2 directions. Oh, hang on, that's an important note. Because that is important to where they are according to the map. No, hang on, that makes sense, I guess, because it can possibly go to Pansy or to Hither. Okay, no, that's fine. Because he's in Comet. Where are we? The platform, 2 directions. Yeah, so that's fine. The mushrooms were slightly bigger here, wider caps and thicker stalks, taller to warn upcoming travellers of the divergence. Milo knelt... Oh, does that make sense? Yeah, actually... Oh, I will highlight that. I'll double check that later. Milo knelt down beside one of the outer ones, careful not to disturb those around it. It was a light parchment brown, like the others, and its cap was spongy and sturdy, giving a satisfying plonk as he tapped on it. Oh, I love that. That's such a nice sensory image. You can just imagine going plump, plump, plonk. Plonk is the right word. When you imagine tapping on a big old mushroom. This one would do nicely. Milo unfurled his roll-up satchel. Satchel. Sorry, just because we mentioned that earlier. And pulled out the curved metal rod. He'd likened it to a... I think that needs to be explained that that's a wood, because it reads as he had, but he would. He would liken it to a blade, but it wasn't nearly sharp. God, that's bad as well. It wasn't nearly sharp enough to cut anything. It was closer to a shoehorn or a letter opener. That's why I call it a letter horn later. Cute. He'd fashioned it himself after enough badgering of the blacksmith to use her forge. The thing wasn't designed to cut off pieces of the mushroom, but to encourage them to drop of their own volition. They weren't sentient, of course, but Milo felt better to ask than to take. He squashed himself down low, his ear practically to the ground, and craned his head around to see the gills. Today was not a normal day at work. If Milo were honest, he would admit he finished planting the mushrooms weeks ago. He was, in this case, dishonest, however, and insisted he would be working right up till dusk. But today, he was testing something exciting. He raised the letter horn carefully, pulling it across the surface of the gills. It released a thin strand of tissue, which he caught carefully in his hand, and then he pulled forward the tray, a collection of mismatched glass cups and bottles, each with one of 3 liquids inside, yellow, red, and purple. He'd tried the 3 individually before, but if he were to make any of a case, they'd have to work together. Milo got to work, cutting up the small piece of mushroom, mixing liquids, injecting myelin, and testing his samples. At the culmination of his work, he pulled up his cloak over his head, over his experiment, and watched them in the darkness. I'm going to highlight myelin because I don't remember if that's actually a word. I will look into that later. But for now, I just want to write and see what happens. So I might go quiet for a bit as I'm thinking, but we'll see. So essentially what's happening here, in case you don't know, is these mushrooms glow in the dark, and they essentially act as like street lamps for people who are traveling between towns, so they can see where the road is when they're traveling from town to town. But Milo has developed this serum which will hopefully have them react to other stimuli. So when someone is close to them, they will start to glow yellow, which essentially means if someone is walking along the road off in the distance, you can then tell that someone is coming and then like move to the side so you can probably get around each other and that kind of thing. They will like glow red when they're damaged, so it means if for whatever reason some kind of monster is rampaging down the road, you'll see that all the mushrooms are turning red and you're like, shit, get out of the way. And then I also wrote down they do something that turns them purple, and I don't know what that is. I must have had an idea at some point, and I can't remember what that is. So I need to think of something. But anyway, okay. So so Milo is now going to be showing. It's now going to be nighttime. It's going to be a few months later. And he's going to be showing these new things to an ambassador from another town. And I'm going to keep it dialogue free. I'm going to say that this character is nonverbal. Because I don't want dialogue in this story. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Okay. Good timing. Sorry. Poppy's excited. Okay. Actually, let's clear that out. I don't want to see that. No, I don't need to get into how he cooks his food. That's getting distracted. sometimes I recognize that I'm using two words in rapid succession, but it's better to just put the sentence down and fix that later than not get the sentence down. So I am gonna write a bad here for a second, but I just need to get the image out. We can refine it later. Yeah, sorry. Some of these sentences are gonna be so bad, but it's better to just get the image down and fix it later. So don't judge me. A viol maybe? No, it's a plucking, so it's like a. I don't want to say a lute. Give me a different instrument. Like a shawm? Is that the word? No, that's a give me old string instruments. Harp. Mandolin? Let's go mandolin. Mandolin's a lyre. No, let's go mandolin. Mandolin feels like the vibe. Ugh, this is not the right one. Yeah, I hate that sentence. So bad. But you get the image. Hey, writing be tough sometimes. It's like I'm trying to say these all things are coming together in like one nice sensory experience, you know? It's just very mellow and gentle, but I don't know how do you I kind of just explained it in images. That'll do. We'll leave that there for now. Okay. Oh, my tea is going cold already. I also just thinking about it. I need to check. Where's my phone? Oh, it's absolutely gone. Oh no, it's right there. I am going to meet up with some people this afternoon, so I need to make sure I have enough time to have lunch before then and catch the bus over. So I just need to make sure I don't accidentally stream for too long. Let's see, I need to get there at 2. So I'm just calculating bus times on here, don't mind me. Okay, that's fine. Sweet, I've got time. Okay, it was nicer than he remembered. Right, I'm gonna reread over that because I've kind of forgotten what the trajectory was going. Milo didn't visit the inn very often. It was usually loud, or at least bright, and he wasn't entirely sure on the etiquette of ordering food or drink. It wasn't the most... Oh, whatever. It was a comfortable place for him to visit. Today, he was more than happy to make an exception. He'd settled into a small 2-seater table by the front window. From it, he could see people milling through the square, stalls and carts illuminated in soft lantern light. The inn was reasonably busy. Only a few tables remained empty, but chatter was kept to a low hum. I want to just put a comment here. No, review. So I can... No, give me a comment, thank you. Wait, no, I'll just write it in brackets. I'm not too... What do I want to do? What am I trying to say? Make it clear that this is this. Okay, just a little note for myself. Okay, and he'd said the inn was reasonably busy. Only a few tables remained empty, but chatter was kept to a low hum that Milo was surprised to find comforting. Warm notes were plucked absent-mindedly, rising from a mandolin-wielding woman in a corner. Oof. A simmering fire poured embracing warmth into the room and bathed it in a low orange light. Bowls of stew accompanied wooden cups of mulled wine dotted around tables. It all blended together and greeted Milo contentedly. It was nicer than he remembered. God, how long would it take for it to get a letter to get a letter to Light? If that's like 2 days, like 3 days, 5. So I'm looking at I'm here. No, I'll show you the map so you can also see what I'm calculating. So So, stop. So What's lives here, Milo lives here, and the ambassador lives over here. So I'm trying to figure out how long it would take to get a letter over there and back, and then how to get the ambassador here. So if that's 2 days, 3 days, so 5. Well, no, it'll be in a cart, which might be quicker. No, that makes sense. 5. 7. If it takes 2 weeks, 2 weeks to travel from Comet to Light. So he would have sent... So maybe sent the initial letter like 2 months ago. That gives it 2 weeks to get there. 2 weeks for a reply. So it's been a month. Then 2 weeks for him and then a month for him to get ready and then come over. So if he sent the letter like 2 weeks ago, so then you got some change. Whoops, sorry. What happened when I closed that? Oh, nothing for you. Okay, cool. Okay. Let's see. Sense, but we'll leave it. What's the ambassador's name going to be? I'm picturing the ambassador. I'm imagining. Don't know if any of you from like Cosmic Wheel Sisterhood. I'm kind of picturing Uania. So like a kind of like deer folk person. Lots of light colors, like light teals and white and stuff like that. Very soft kind of creams and that kind of thing. I'm picturing. Should I bring up a name generator? Love fantasy name generator. Give me a deer folk. Sure, Satyr and Fawn names. We'll do that. Dankos is nice. Strihaya. That's cute. Strihaya. Maybe would they be addressed by their last names? I think lots of the time they use first names in this place. Okay. Strihaya. I know I'm usually just responded to frequently, but whatever. That sentence sucked. thinking? I'll just write whatever. I can edit it later. What would the word be? Like the Strahaya is the ambassador, the leader of Light, which is a town built into a mountain, so it's very dark in there. So I think they're very interested in its potential application there. Oh, there we go. That's the one I'm thinking of. I don't think that sentence made sense, but whatever. what's the word? I'm thinking like a waterfall kind of movement. And loose tresses? That's more of a hair word, isn't it? Let me Google tresses. What is that? Is that word specifically only for hair? Tress. A long lock of a woman's hair. It does look like it's only used for hair. But it kind of gives the image though, does it matter? What if I just do it anyway? Okay. Where was Strahaya leading before? Maybe Spruce? Sure. Okay. I might read out what I've written so far, see what it sounds like, just the vibe. Oh, I'm getting a headache. Oh, I've been focusing on this so hard. Okay, let's go. This is probably going to be pretty rough. Some of the sentences I was just like, I just need to get the image on the paper, but the sentence structure and word choice sometimes sucks, but whatever, we'll give it a go. Milo didn't visit the inn very often. It was usually loud, or at least bright, and he wasn't entirely sure on the etiquette of ordering food or drink. They weren't the most comfortable place for him to visit, but today he was more than happy to make an exception. Oh, that's a little note for myself. He'd settled at a small, two-seated table by the front window. From it, he could see people milling through the square, stalls and carts illuminated in soft lantern light. The inn was reasonably busy, only a few tables remained empty, but chatter was kept to a low hum that Milo was surprised to find comforting. Warm notes were plucked absent-mindedly, rising from a mandolin-wielding woman in a corner. A simmering fire poured embracing warmth into the room and bathed it in a low orange light. Bowls of stew accompanied wooden cups of mulled wine dotted around tables. It all blended together and greeted Milo contentedly. It was nicer than he remembered. The ambassador... Oh, I want to put a note in here. The ambassador arrived precisely when they'd arranged. Oof. Milo's letter of invitation had been sent 2 months previous, and the response arrived with the return of the cart who carried it. Ambassador Strahia had responded with reserved enthusiasm, and Milo found it quite a pleasant read. While he'd sent letters to all the other town leaders as well, he'd prioritized Strahia's, and was pleased to find that they were the most interested of the lot. They put forward a number of thought-provoking questions and considerations on how it might be applied to the mountain-built town they led. Their letter was engaged and clearly well thought out, and Milo beamed to have his enthusiasm shared. When they entered the inn, the murmuring pervading the room dipped momentarily before reinflating in reignited conversation. Oh, that was a rough sentence. Strahia had a mystical presence to them. Their dear features were gentle and curious, but were accompanied by a large set of antlers and a height that stood at least a foot over the average citizen. Layers of cream and light teal cloth wrapped them in loose tresses, bathing them like a halo. They carried a worn travelling bag at their side. As they entered the room, Milo quickly hopped from his seat and hurried to greet them. Milo was already small in a crowd, but was easily half of Strahia's height. He bowed his head and held a clasped hand to his chest. Strahia had been the leader of the mountainous town of Light for only a year, and was previously assigned to Spruce. While Milo had never met them before, he had heard plenty. They were popular and known for their patience and diplomacy. Milo had also learnt that Strahia wasn't one for words, so when he lifted his head and held out his hand to gesture to their travelling bag, which held out his hand to gesture to their travelling bag, which they handed over with a bowed head. Oof. Milo pulled the bag to the bar, now realizing how big and heavy it was compared to him. He waved down the keeper and asked that the bag be taken to the room he'd organized for the ambassador. The keeper nodded and carried the bag away. When he returned to Strahia, he quickly felt nerves settle over him. They weren't intimidating in a threatening way, but from the way that they had written and the renown that they had earned, Milo knew their opinion was valued, and part of him just hoped that they'd like him. He held a hand to the bar, showing the list of drinks and meals on offer, written neatly on a chalkboard hanging on the wall. Strahia smiled and held up a hand. No drinks today. But they gestured for the door. Milo smiled. They wanted to see the mushrooms right away. He hoped they'd live up to his descriptions. Oh, that was rough. Yeah, so some of the sentences in there were pretty bad. But generally, I just want to get the beats on the page of, like, setting up the tavern, Strahia arriving, kind of introducing what their deal is. and then going, okay, we're going to move off and look at the mushrooms now. I've got other beats I need to cover, but I think I might leave it there for today just because I've got a headache and I want to recover that from that before I have to leave. But yeah, I think I made some nice progress today. I actually have like a direction that I want to carry the story in now, which is nice. Brilliant. Yes, so thank you so much for joining me. I think I'll leave it there for now. Happy with the progress we've made. But yes, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll see how I'm feeling next week, but maybe next Monday I'll continue on writing out this story. Or maybe I'll do some more drawing, finish off the map. We'll see. And then this Friday, on my Friday stream, I'm gonna probably continue playing some more Eye of the Beholder, which has been lots of fun. Yes, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day. And I'll see you next time. Oh, no worries, Mecha Ranger. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you have a good day too. Bye. Goodbye.